Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we normally talk about movie trilogies. But this week we're going to talk about 2021 in review. Joining me today,
I'm Conan, and we are not alcoholics. We decide when we want to drink. An alcoholic can't help himself.
And I'm Luke Morgan, and I never fit in for lots of reasons, but movies were always there for me.
Nice.
boys. Should I do a quote? Here's my inspirational quote from one of my favorite things from the year. Doing something great is overrated because then people expect that from you all the time. What they don't realize is you're just as screwed up as the rest of them.
Oh,
I've seen that, but I don't know what it's from.
You've seen the show.
cool.
2021, what a weird year for movies and TV, hey?
It's whack, yeah. We were just talking about this before at the beginning. It's been such a strange time because I feel like a lot's actually come out,
Mm.
but at least in Australia, it's been harder than ever to actually see stuff.
Hmm.
So, like your big thing is obviously in America, you got HBO Max where things are streaming simultaneously to cinematic releases. But here we don't have that. We have nothing comparable. So if it's not at a cinema, you can't see it really. And I feel like there's a lot of films that I wanted to put on this list that I couldn't because I hadn't seen them yet. There are films that I'm like, I know I'm going to like that. It's right down my alley.
Yeah.
Some that have been out for months that were released on HBO Max, did a run, and then that's it. And I don't know what's going to go on really, and it's kind
Are
of
you,
frustrating.
are you talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League cut?
That's exactly
I
it.
thought so. Yeah, it's a damn shame we
Um,
don't have HBO Max.
but yeah, compared to like 2020, I don't know. There's been some good stuff this year. I think COVID's kind of. I don't know. We're starting to see some interesting stuff come out of this lockdown. Films getting made that potentially have to be a bit more interesting or just have been pushed back the year, so we're getting sort of that backlog. But
Hmm.
I don't know, it's kind of cool. I've liked this year in film.
For better or worse, there were a lot of movies that were supposed to come out last year that we didn't get to this year and maybe still didn't have any
Yep.
hype around them, like some Marvel movies that we won't probably talk about tonight. But yeah, maybe all of
Will we not?
Luke's recommendations are Marvel movies. Luke, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, I will. So, um, yeah, like you guys were saying, I feel like this was actually a really strong year for movies and TV shows. Especially TV shows, I felt like I was really into a lot. But a movie in particular that I really want to talk about that I absolutely adore. I've recommended it to you guys before. You've guessed what that I was going to talk about on this podcast.
Good
There's
game.
a movie on Netflix called The Mitchells vs. the Machines. This is an animated DreamWorks picture produced by Phil Lord and Chris Miller from both Lego Batman fame, Into the Spider Verse, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They they do
21,
really good,
21 Jump Street.
funny films. Yeah, like they're funny guys. And when this movie was, I think it came out, oh, probably around March or April this year. I think it was. Launched on Netflix. Didn't go to cinemas or anything like that. I think it's just recently had a cinema release. But to give a quick synopsis of the movie, young Katie Mitchell embarks on a road trip with her proud parents, younger brother, and her beloved dog to start her first year at film school. But their plans to bond as a family soon get interrupted when the world's electronic devices come to life to stage an uprising.
Hmm.
With help from two friendly robots, the Mitchells must now come together to save one another and the planet from the new technological revolution. I mean, it's going to be our future eventually. Um,
Fitting,
this
yeah.
this movie has 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I watched it
Means
the
nothing.
night it.
Yeah. Does it have any good metrics?
Yes, everything else. It's
How recommended is
it's
it on
seem
Netflix? What's the percentage of recommendation on Netflix? It's the only scale I care about.
you can't trust that at all. I watched this the night it launched on Netflix, and it's kind of a weird thing. Like I have an attachment to the night I watched this. We had a family night, a family movie night. The kids sitting on blankets on the floor. We had popcorn. We had marshmallows, snacks, and we all sat there, the four of us, and watched the movie. And we're all
Yeah.
captivated, start to finish. My daughter really got sick halfway through and had to go to hospital, but then she came back and we finished the movie. But it was fine.
Jeez.
She was all right.
Too many marshmallows.
um, yeah, probably. But I love this movie. Like I think it's really funny. I think it has a lot of heart. I'm not ashamed to admit I cry every time I watch this movie. As a parent, I guarantee it will pull on your heartstrings as well, the two of you, especially having a little daughter. The the heart of this movie is the relationship between the father and the daughter, the main character. Um, and there's just moments in it. It hit me really strongly, and like even this, I think the score is fantastic. And when I did my Apple replay 2021 of my most 100 played songs, in my top 10 was a piece of music from this movie soundtrack from one of the saddest moments. It's just this beautiful piece of music, and every time I listen to it, it makes me almost cry because it's such a beautiful moment in the movie. Um, I highly recommend it. It's it's honestly hysterical. If you've watched Into the Spider-Verse or Lego Batman or any of them, you know, like they do comedy really well, these guys. Um, and just yeah, I think it's a really great movie. My kids adored this movie. They've seen it probably 100 times now because the
Mm,
following weeks after they watched it, it was just like, let's watch Mitchell's Machines again. So
mm.
I've seen bits and pieces of this movie for a long time. I've probably only watched it beginning to end 2 or 3 times myself, but highly recommend it to you guys and to everyone at home. I love this movie and can't praise it enough. And I do think it's my favorite film of 2021 that I've seen. So
Wow,
Dang.
big praise. I uh,
Yeah.
I I'm a bad person. I always write animated films off. I never make an effort to go and see
What?
them in the cinema. I always just catch them somewhere. I'm like, man, that was such a good movie. Why didn't I watch that earlier? And I feel like this will
yep,
probably be one of those because Spider Verse actually was a movie I did seek out because I thought it looked awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
yep,
yeah, I should watch this. I know I should.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been on my list sort of since it came out because like you, Phil Lord, Chris Miller are my guys. They are
yep,
like since Clone High days, they are just some of the probably the funniest people working in animation. Like they're amazing.
yep,
And yeah, I want to support their stuff. I just Netflix gives me that problem where I'm like, it's a Netflix production, it'll be on there forever, so I can watch it whenever I want. So I have
yeah,
zero, unless I'm like dying to watch it, I have zero motivation to. But I don't know. It seems like a film that's exactly what I'm into. Like say, father-daughter relationship. The daughter wants to get into film. I'm like, that's what I plan to mold my daughter and get her into filmmaking, whether she wants to or not. So
yep.
I think it's gonna be. It's like my future.
Yep. And just fun fact about Phil Lord and Chris Miller, both of them have actually retweeted one of my tweets on Twitter and replied to me. So just saying. It was
Dude,
Big
a
stuff.
hook me up.
video of my son singing "What's Up Danger" from Into the Spider Verse. Um, that he'd recorded himself on his iPad singing it to the camera. And I thought it was the most adorable thing. So I uploaded it on there to them and they thought it was great. And so shout out to you guys.
Dude, get them on the pod. What are you doing?
They didn't reply to my DM. They were like, "Okay, don't push it. We retweeted your tweet. Don't now come at me 5 months later and slide into my DMs." So, yeah.
Right on.
Nice.
Right.
Conan, do you wanna give us your first horror recommendation for 2021?
No, I've only got one horror recommendation here. I'm going to keep it till the end actually because
Okay, okay.
it's it's an interesting talking point. I'm going to start it off with one that is technically a 2020 film, but I'm going to put it as a 2021 because I can only see it then. It always happens. Films that are for the Oscar season come out like December 31st in America, and so then it's physically impossible to watch it except in the year after. And that's what this was. It was very close to the end, I think. I don't know, but it just didn't come out here for ages. So it's called Another Round. Have either of you guys heard of this film?
No,
I haven't even
Luke,
heard of it.
You're a Mads Mikkelsen fan, right?
I am. I am.
So this was his vehicle of again 2020. Basically, it is directed by Thomas Winterberg rather, who made The Hunt, which is another pretty famous film back in 2012 with Mads. Basically, it follows four high school teachers who are kind of at a midlife crisis stage, and they decide to test out a theory that having a level of blood alcohol, or just having alcohol in your blood at all times, will improve your quality of life. Now, it's something that I think we've all thought about at some point, whether just being drunk is the way to be. But it's, I don't know, it got a lot of got a lot of film festival buzz, as a lot of these films do. Like Vinterberg's a big name in the film scene, and Mads and him have a good working relationship. But basically, it's just this great film. It's really beautiful, both in terms of how it is shot and filmed, but also like what it's exploring. Because basically, it's exploring this question of drinking culture, but it doesn't try really hard to demonize it. It's not preachy or critical, but at the same time, it's not just a celebration. It is very much an examination of how this thing can be good and can actually like can improve your life in certain elements and sort of, you know, for whatever reasons or what that allows you to then do. But it's also very aware of the fact that binge drinking is really dangerous. And like Denmark has a huge binge drinking problem. So it's very much studying that and looking at why people do it, how it's not all bad, but the dangers of it as well. But more than that, it's this really beautiful film about male intimacy. It's these four teachers, these four friends who've been friends for a long time, who are just in weird points in their life. And I was reminded when I saw it of like the Ocean's films because
Mm.
I don't think they're like the only other films that come to mind where I'm like these films just explore dudes who are close and who are friends and guys just hanging out who just love being with each other in a purely platonic way. And that's what this film is like. It's just four guys who are like, we need each other, and they get all. Like, it's just this beautiful film about male intimacy, and like it's got this amazing dance scene at the end with Mads just like showing his moves. It's so much fun. It's a really good film. I highly rate it.
Dude, if you want a film about four bros just being good buddies, The Lord of the Rings, man,
Oh.
highly recommended.
There's 9
Is it
bros.
Uh,
in is it in
no, but the Four
Danish?
Hobbits. Okay, so I actually have heard of this film. I peeked it a few months ago when I was trying to look at movies to watch, and that had popped up, and it did pique my interest. There's a few movies actually with Mads Mikkelsen that have come out in the last year that I'm interested in seeing that I didn't know much about, but I
Yeah,
haven't got
Riders of
around to
Justice,
watching
maybe.
this. But
Yeah.
it sounds interesting. And obviously it's reviewed very well as well, and I love me some Mads Mikkelsen, so I need to get on that.
Yep.
And yeah, Riders of Justice, because that sounds right up my alley as well.
Yep, it does. That's on my I wish I could have watched it list.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, no, sounds interesting. I'll check it out. I'm very much in need of movie recommendations this year because
Mm.
I don't know, I had a weird year. It was hard to watch movies for part of it. We spent a lot of time in hospital, and then when we were home, we just had comfort TV on. We were watching The Office and Parks and Rec and
Mm.
some other stuff like that. But I do have some recommendations. My first one is Mayor of Easttown. So the premise: in a suburb of Philadelphia, police detective Mayor Sheehan uh, investigates the recent murder of a teenage mother while trying to keep her own life from falling apart. Mare is a local hero, having been the star of a high school basketball championship game 25 years ago. She has also been unable to solve the case of another missing young girl for a whole year, leading many in the community to doubt her detective skills. Her personal troubles include divorce, a son lost to suicide, and a custody battle with her ex heroin addict, former daughter in law over Mare's grandson. Um,
Wow,
there's a lot going on.
that's a
Yeah,
lot going
Mayor of
on there.
Easttown. Small town stories, even though this is like in the suburbs, small town stories are so hot right now. There's so many,
Yep, yep.
like Conan, one of your recommendations that I watched this year was The Outsider, and that's all about, how in
Mm.
small towns, everybody knows each other, rumors abound, and everybody assumes they assume they know the person next door and they know what they're like, and then they find out some secret or something like that. And there's just been so many films that have touched on this, and Mayor of Easttown is very much like that as well. Everybody knows who Mayor is. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's related to each other, and Mayor
Yeah,
has to
yeah.
try and navigate this web of people to solve this murder mystery while her life is just falling apart. She's an absolute disaster of a human being. Kate
It's
Winslet
so good.
plays Mayor, and she's phenomenal in this
Mm.
series. Um,
Yeah, remarkable performance.
yeah, she just goes from being this tough ass detective to drunk and stumbling over herself to just like an absolute mess of human being. Um, the relationships between her and her ex-husband and her mother and her daughter are fascinating to look at. And then, yeah, as it
Mm,
says in the synopsis, she's got a son that she's trying to get a grandson that she's trying to get custody of. Um, all the while, like living in a moral grey area a lot of the time, while she's trying to solve this mystery. And the murder mystery is genuinely very interesting. It definitely takes some
Mm,
turns. It had me guessing right up until the end. I didn't pick the ending. I saw Stephen King tweeted about this show quite a bit, and he did pick the ending quite early on. So, but I don't know.
good enough.
Maybe he's better at that than I am. But
I
We
mean,
can't all be Stephen King.
no,
yeah,
that's
when you
right.
write a thousand mystery novels, you learn a thing or two, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, if this show doesn't win like every award at any TV awards, there's something wrong. Kate Winslet deserves everything I think she gets because she's just phenomenal in this
Yeah.
show.
Better watch out for that Hawkeye. I think it might steal something
Yeah,
from
Jeremy Renner's going to give her a
Jeremy
run.
Renner and Haley
Boy.
Give her a real
Steinfeld.
run for her money.
So I'd heard this name, Mayor of Easttown, like probably from you guys. Like when you were watching it, I don't know, but it sounded familiar when you sent the message earlier on today. I was like, oh, I swear I've heard that name. I'd never looked it up and had read the synopsis and stuff like that and seen the reviews and the cast, and I was like, this sounds really fascinating.
Yeah,
And like to the point, like I'm probably going to start watching it when we finish this podcast tonight because
good.
I'm really intrigued to watch this, and it sounds like something I'm in the mood for something like that, you know. And yeah, like I'm keen to watch this. So
It's just it's so good. It does the best thing that all like mysteries do, right? It's all about the human sort of the human element and the human problem in here. And so it's her relationships are more of the concern than anything, but it's just how the
Yeah,
mystery brings out the issues facing modern day America, right? Because it seemed like this dying Rust Belt town. Let's say small town, everyone knows each other. Everyone's just doing drugs because there's nothing else to do.
mm,
Like no one wants to admit that kind of they're living in the post-American dream. And the mystery is this great, like both metaphor for the death of innocence and the death of America as a country. And it's just it does all those things you want. It's just got phenomenal. It's like pure prestige TV. Great cast. Everyone's giving an amazing performance. Really well constructed, written. Like got a lot to say. I think I finished the show in like 2 afternoons. I watched like
yeah,
4 episodes, then three because I was just hooked. It was like as soon as I finished, like, geez, I need to keep watching. Yeah, I think best show of the year for sure.
yeah. I think I agree, and they do a really good yeah. The twists and turns are really good. Like I spent several episodes just absolutely hating this one character, thinking this guy's
Yep.
such a scumbag. He's doing this to these young women, and then you find out he's like totally innocent or he's not doing what you think he's doing, and then like there's this other character who's just a total deadbeat, and then you find out he dies and stuff like it's just and it's kind of heartbreaking. Like it's just so
let's not spoil
no,
everything for
I mean
me.
they're very general spoilers. Sorry, maybe that was a
Yeah.
little too far, but it does a great
People die. Eh?
yeah, people die.
Yeah,
It does a great job at just setting these characters up and then taking on the twists and turns of their relationships and yeah,
Hmm.
you get a real idea of this small town and how everybody relates to each other and fits together, and their grudges that they're holding on to 20 years later, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, and I think as well, just this isn't a spoiler, but just a broader comment. I think that's a great thing because it's not too bogged down in its own depression. Like a lot of prestige shows, like I don't know, it reminds me a bit of True Detective without the supernatural element. And
Mm,
I adore that show, but it's very, it's very bleak, it's very dark. There's very little hope. Whereas this is a bit more. I was listening to a podcast with the writer, and he was talking about how he sort of was interested more in sort of a not necessarily a positive outlook, but just like the a goodness of humanity. And I think it comes out really well in this show that it's not just, we're all screwed and there's no hope. It's like we're all screwed, but there is hope in these small little things that we can do and in micro moments, which is really nice to have.
mm. Yeah, as much as like a disaster Mare's life is, there is moments of hope. There's moments of like family and togetherness, and it feels really wholesome in those moments. And yeah,
Yeah.
it does all that so well.
this this whole like thing of going back to like your hometown, and people holding grudges 20 years later and solving a mystery. It reminds me of a limited series I watched last year. Did either of you watch Sharp Objects with Amy Adams?
No, but it's on my
No.
list.
Similar sort of story. I believe she's a journalist that goes back to a town where all these mystery crimes have been happening for 20 years, and
Mm.
but it's a disturbing show. There's not much levity to that show. That's
Yeah,
probably the main difference.
I
It's
heard it was
really
very,
disturbing,
very, very
and messed up and dark, and depressing, but really, really strong show as well. But yeah, no, I'm really keen to watch that. So
This is why I don't go back to our hometown, because I know that you guys have got grudges against me still, and I'll
man,
probably get killed. So
yep. That's the thing. I was like, this. It describes our little town.
Kind of, you need to come back and solve some of our murder mysteries because that's getting out of
Seriously,
control,
man.
man.
You're the
and
journalist.
now that
Where
I'm a
are
writer,
you?
I'm prime protagonist material.
Exactly. Alan Wake. Um, my next movie recommendation is a movie that I saw recently. A small little indie film called June.
The most indie of
What's
So
that?
indie films.
Tell me
yes.
more.
So, look, here's the synopsis. Paul Atreides, a brilliant and gifted young man born into a great destiny beyond his understanding, must travel to the most dangerous planet in the universe to ensure the future of his family and his people. As malevolent forces explode into conflict over the planet's exclusive supply of the most precious resource in existence, only those who can conquer their own fear will survive. So, obviously, this people have been hyping this movie up for a long time. Originally a book, and there was a movie or TV series back in the 90s or 80s
Both.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd never known much about this until this movie was coming out. I love Dennis Villeneuve. I love his stuff. I think he's an amazing director, and the cast and everything had me intrigued. I was worried, as I've gone into in another podcast of ours, um, that the sand would turn me off it because I'm not a fan of sand movies and in the desert and dry and hot heat and all this sort of stuff. Um, but I was enthralled by this film. Um, it's like it was such a great experience watching it at the cinema. It felt like it really did feel like a cinema experience that you needed to see it at the cinema for. Um, just like, the booming bass and stuff like it added to that feel of that movie. And I felt like it was, watching what people would have felt like when they watched Star Wars for the first time. And I know this is weird now to think about it, but I had this thought when I first watched Guardians of the Galaxy back in 2014. This like, back then there were unknown people. People weren't sure how that movie was going to go. And I remember leaving that movie being like, that was great. Like that was hilarious. Like I loved that
That's my
movie.
Star Wars.
I said that to my friend. We walked out. I was like, "This is this generation Star Wars." Um, you know, but and I've said it walking out of this one as well. I'm like, this. It. I was just fascinated by the world, the lore. I want to know more about all this stuff. I'm really fascinated to read the book
Mm.
now and the other books that you've mentioned, Griner. The cast is amazing. Great score, Hans Zimmer, my boy. Um, just yeah, fascinated. Like I was had moments watching the movie where I would sit there and be like, "This is awesome!" Like I was like, like captivated by this, and um, yeah, I really want to know more about that world, and I can't wait for part two. And I wish it was coming sooner than what it is, but the wait begins. And I love the whole part one aspect. It sort of gives me fellowship vibes, like when that movie just ends and it's like, it's characters walking and it's like then the credits roll and it's like, well, this is just the first part of, you know, this story. And I kind of like that in a way. You guys have both seen it. I know that. What did you guys think?
Bernie, you go first.
So, June was like a book that I'd wanted to read for a while, and when I saw the movie was coming out, I decided to read the book first. I just wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be that asshole who says, "Well, actually, in the book, I'll try not to be that guy." But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the movie. Like it's probably one of the more faithful book adaptations out there. Like Lord of the Rings probably stands above it in terms of being faithful. Although that not having Tom Bombadil really does
It's not necessary.
Criminal,
drag it
criminal.
down. But no, like Dennis is very faithful to the book, which I really appreciated. And reading the book, I'm like, how the hell do you put this into a movie? Because so much of the book is about these really abstract concepts like the voice and his
Mm.
ability to see what's going on in the future and these visions that he has. But I think they, by and large, do a really good job capturing that. And like technically, it's hard to fault this movie. The just these sweeping shots of
Mm.
Arrakis and the city, and like you see all the dust, all the sand, up in the corners of all the buildings, and you get that booming music, and then you show the Atreides home planet, so you show Caladan, and it's this like Spanish inspired place, like it has a very
Mm.
very different feel, and all through the books they're talking about how how wet Caladan is compared to Arrakis.
Yeah.
And I think he like captures that sort of stuff really well. Um,
Yeah.
I think some of the performances are a little bit stilted. Like the movie feels a little heartless, a little robotic to me in places. I
Yeah.
think what I can't remember
Anyone in
what's the
particular? Call them
oh
out.
um Paul. What's the actor's name?
Chalamet.
Paul
Timothy
Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet. It's hard though because Paul is he's kind of a strange character in a lot of ways. Like I said, he's having these visions and stuff like that. He is kind of robotic in some ways in the book, but there's other parts where he shows really great compassion and stuff like this that they didn't sort of get across in the movie. I don't know how you do it heaps better than what it was done, but I don't know. How did you guys feel about his acting? Did you feel he was a bit stilted, a bit robotic, a little
I
heartless?
so I had the same thought. I think almost everyone else is great. Chalamet is kind of the part that I couldn't figure. He's very enigmatic. I couldn't figure out if everything he did was intentional, and it's like he's trying to be a blank slate almost, or if it's just he couldn't figure out how to connect with his character.
Mm.
And I don't, it's interesting looking at the reviews of this. So everyone sort of has seen this film, and everyone at least I've seen on like Letterboxd and talking to about, it's like they love it, but they're not willing to say it's the best film ever. They're like, it's great, but there's something holding it back. And that's sort of my feeling with it. I
Mm,
adore Villeneuve. I think he's probably the best director working currently. And his formal precision is like amazing. Like the way he just frames everything, his shot of like the brutalist architecture on Dune versus the
Mm.
endless sands. Some of the scenes, like the shock troopers just kind of floating down,
yeah.
Yep.
and like the majesty of when a ship ascends or descends, and just how he stops and watches that for like a minute, and you're just like, this is cool. I'm just watching the majesty of this space world happen. But
Mm,
yeah, there is. I almost feel like it's so precise and formally perfect to a fault where there is an element of humanity missing. Um, and I just wonder if that's impossible to not do when you're like, I have to create a whole world in 2.5 hours, right?
yeah, I don't know. I feel like Dune is such a hard project. Like obviously they've tried twice before, and both twice, maybe even three times. Was there two
There was
movies and a TV series? I think.
there was a very infamous attempted movie by this weird director called Alejandro Jodorowsky, and
Yeah,
there's he was apparently going to be really faithful because he was going to go like full balls to the wall, drug fused space
that's right.
high.
Yep,
But so yeah, there's a documentary about it, really interesting, but that never got made.
right. So, but it has been tried before, very unsuccessfully. Yeah, like it feels like such a hard project, and I
Mm.
feel like he's done such a good job, but yeah, it just doesn't feel quite there. I'm hoping part two can redeem it a bit. Like there is a lot of that heartlessness of part one will probably fade away in part two, I believe, with where the story goes, and I hope Denny's can pull that all together and give us a really good part two, and then maybe even more parts in the future.
Because like, how did you feel about it? I think you liked this the most out of all of us, right?
Oh well, I'm just not
Like,
going to talk about it now because you're just
no,
shitting
no,
on my
so,
favorite movie
so
recommendation.
let
I'm
me just.
joking. I'm joking. I can see what you're saying. Like even the parts of the movie that I know you mentioned the other day, like where it's meant to show his compassion with the trees, the palm trees.
Yeah,
The delivery is quite just like robotic. Like when, well, perhaps we should do this then. Like instead of like, oh, wouldn't it's not much compassion there or anything. But I feel like like sort of what Conan said. I don't know if that's intentional, where it kind of feels like this I don't know, unhuman like quality to like this. And I don't know if that's just humanity hundreds of years from now in space and that's what people are like and it's not like what we're like,
Yeah,
like I'm sure
yeah,
me walking out there seeing the palm trees would be very different than this guy with the voice and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that I found that part of the appeal of the film. Like I found his performance kind of what it needed to be. It's not like I was like, man, his performance was amazing. He's like, it's kind of this blank, like monotonous thing.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah,
Yeah, you're right. And Paul, like in the book, he's a bit of an enigma. Like he's very competent at everything he does without even having to try. And they
mm,
sort of get that across in the movie a bit. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot in the books about his mother and father and their relationship and how she's a concubine, not actually his wife, but how he would
Yeah,
never
that
ever
does.
never ever take a woman except for her. Like I don't know. There's a lot of
mm.
family dynamic there that you don't really get a lot of look at here. That I don't know. I feel makes their family a lot more, um,
See,
yeah, relatable.
because like there's a line in that, not to spoil the movie, but like there's a line that he says like, "Oh, I wish I should have married you" or something like that.
Yeah.
And I had a moment. I was like,
Mm.
"Oh, they're not married." Like it's like a thing. Like I just assumed it's this mother and father and their kid. Like it's
No,
Mm.
it's
it's doesn't go into all that sort of stuff.
there's
But
there's politics behind everything, right? So
See, I do feel like I wonder if it would have been better to have the first film all about the political world building and setup, and then the second film all about his journey. Because I kind of thinking about it more, I feel like ending it where they sort of they do so much world building at the beginning, and then they have the whole. I mean, we're going to spoil it, right? Are we
yeah,
going to spoil it or no?
yep.
So
Spoilers
they
if
have
you're listening.
yeah. So they have the whole assault where the whole um the Atreides House Atreides gets killed.
The betrayal, yeah.
Yeah, and then kind of his journey starts, and that's for about half an hour towards the end. And I almost feel like it would have been better to just have more of just like here is the politics and the family stuff going on, and then like have that whole battle be the final part and
Mm,
end there, right? It's
have that be your Empire Strikes Back,
yeah,
not this
exactly,
Dark Note that Atreides is wiped out and he's off to.
exactly. And we see him about to begin his journey.
yeah,
And I don't know if it's because they had to get Zendaya in there because she's not actually in. She's only in those flash forwards, so it's like we need to show her properly, or what exactly. But I kind of wish they'd spend more time fleshing all of this a bit more of the political stuff out because you can tell it's there. There's a lot of great moments hinting at stuff,
yeah,
Mm.
and for most of the film, it works. But there's a lot of stuff I'm like, I want to know a tiny bit more of everything rather than see his journey halfway done.
yeah. I think they could have done that. I think the middle chapter would probably be pretty boring. Would be the only. I don't know how you'd
Yeah.
construct a middle chapter out of what is directly in the book and make something interesting. Like lots of stuff happens, but it's all very much building up to what happens at the end. So it's a really challenging book to adapt. Like my hat
Yeah.
off to him for what he managed, but yeah,
Mm.
it's a
Yeah,
rough gig.
yeah.
I will say, seeing it at the movies was like,
Mm.
at the risk of sounding like a tool, this is cinema, right? This is why we go. This is why we go to these things.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird that in America it was released on HBO, same time, and so many people I think are watching it there. I'm like, that would just be
I mean,
a very different experience,
Dennis was very very
Like
upset about that. So
as you
like
should be, my
yeah, I
man.
guess so.
this like this film is what Christopher Nolan was saying Tenet was. Like this
Yeah,
film did need to be
exactly.
seen at the cinema,
Like,
So
yeah,
We're all
and look,
recommending Tenet as our final movie, aren't we?
natural best film of 2020. Oh god, but like, yeah,
When did it even come out?
it's kind of like that, hey. um, all right, is it me?
Yeah,
it's
go.
your turn.
All right. I might take this chance then to talk about No Time to Die because I think we had a lot of crossover here. We had a lot of films and shows that were like we all kind of like that, but just for the sake of diversity, No Time to Die was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I guess similar thing, seeing it going back to the movies. This was kind of the first big one this year that when they cinemas reopened in Australia, I was there to see. Very excited to watch it. Really good film. It's we've talked about it at length now on this podcast, but a perfect final chapter to a franchise very close to my heart, and a
Yeah.
really good love letter to what Bond is, and just a great, I know, a really good film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool to go back to the cinema, see a big Bond film after so many years of waiting. And I think for the most part, they did a good job.
6 years.
Yeah, like
6 years.
it's
Crazy.
Yeah.
ludicrous, right? And even if it's not the best, like, I'm sure there are better films this year that I've seen that I'm not including here, which is criminal, but this is an experience that I will remember. So going back, seeing Bond, and it's like, this
And
is
the
great.
and not to spoil it, but like the end of
Mm,
Daniel Craig's Bond,
Mm.
yeah,
you know, it's powerful, and that's something that I'll remember for a long time.
exactly. It's kind of like a meta moment. It's like, this is a moment of film history that's kind of important to me. I'm like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
Craig's been my Bond most of my life, and so this is a big deal. But
it's it's the Infinity War snap.
this is my Infinity War. You're right.
Exactly. So, no, as we discussed it on our James Bond podcast, um, I loved this film. You know, it had like had me reminiscing that Daniel Craig has basically been my Bond. You know, from watching Casino Royale from when I was 13 or 14 years old,
Yeah.
um, and then seeing his series end now at like 29. It's crazy, and yeah, it had an impact, and it felt like a big thing to go watch it. You know, um, and yeah, like especially after Spectre, um, I think it was definitely a vast improvement over Spectre. Um,
Vast. Yes, it
and
will.
yeah, highly recommended, but interesting to see where that franchise goes now.
Mm.
Watch
Yeah,
our James Bond podcast to know more about what
you
we think
should. You'll hear us say these exact things, but this is the first ever Bond movie I saw in the cinema. But yeah,
about
I did
it.
really enjoy it. It was a good experience. I will try and seek them out in the cinema in future because I enjoyed it way more than I normally enjoy Bond. I think
Yeah,
weird how
Smart.
weird how watching Bond on a Saturday night with ads is not the perfect way to watch a
not
James
the
Bond movie. Who would have guessed?
ideal way. I know.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
All right, my next recommendation, another TV show. It started a while ago. It's not didn't start in 2021, but it finished in 2021. So I'm going to count that as a 2021 TV show.
Do it.
Atypical. Have you guys seen Atypical?
Nope.
No. Okay.
I know the show, but never
I
seen it.
don't know it at all.
Let me see if I can find a synopsis real quick. But
It's
it's
about
go ahead. Sorry.
I'll say it's about the autistic guy, right?
Yeah, so Sam is an 18-year-old with a mild form of autism. His mother has tried to protect him from the world, but he feels it's time he establishes some independence. Throughout his funny yet emotional journey of self-discovery, Sam finds himself dealing with the typical teenage situations that include broken friendships, graduation, going to college, and the most daunting task yet, starting a relationship. Um,
Mhm.
it's a little bit like Mayor of Easttown in that it's a show about Sam. He's a guy with autism, finishing school. Basically, is where we sort of start the show, and it goes through to him finishing school and working out what he's going to do with the rest of his life. But all around him are really interesting characters as well. So his family is made up of his mother, father, and his sister. And his mother and father are having relationship problems. His mother's very overbearing and very overprotective of him, and he's trying to get out and do things on his own and show that he can, make it in the world. Um, and I think I enjoyed it from the start, but I think it only got stronger as a TV show. It was a real. I think the main actor. I'll have to try and find his name, but Keir Gilchrist. He's
Kia
not.
Gilchrist.
I don't think he is actually autistic, as far as I know, but he plays the
Ah,
character very well. And then after the first season, they start including a lot of other characters who are differently abled, who have other disabilities, and they're really interesting and very funny, but you never feel like you're laughing at them. You're just laughing at the situations they get themselves into and stuff.
Mm.
Like it's very. I think it's very well handled in that way, and it ends up being just a very wholesome show. Um, yeah, it's interesting seeing Sam, deal with getting a girlfriend um, and sex and stuff like this. That typical relationships have that happen, and it's not such a big deal. But for Sam, it is, and it's I don't know. I found it a really interesting, wholesome show. Um, but yeah, a bit like Mayor of Easttown. It's about the relationships around the main character as well that are just as interesting as what's going on in his life.
Yeah. So has it finished now in 2021
It
or?
finished in 2021, yeah. So four
Yeah.
seasons. They're
four
about 10
seasons.
episodes each season. Um, yeah, it's not a hugely long show. I think it's pretty good. I recommend it.
It's got Michael Rappaport in it.
It
I'm a fan
does.
of him.
does. I think
Who
he's
the
the
Um,
hell is that?
he's the dad. I think
Ah,
from memory.
you'd know him and you know his voice from stuff as well. But yeah, I hadn't even heard of this show before. Um, interesting. So 4 seasons, and yeah, it's been going since 2017, and Netflix. It's a Netflix show, isn't it?
Yes, on Netflix. It'll never leave Netflix, so you can
mm,
you can put it on your to-do list and then never watch it like everything else.
there it
Yeah.
is.
No, it's just it's a
Um.
good like coming of age story.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Interesting to hear that like the main actor isn't actually um autistic. Um.
As far as I know, he is not. Yes,
No, not from what I could just find there, but
I mean, everyone is to some extent, right?
yeah.
it is a spectrum, right?
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Um, I'd be interested to watch it. So it's a comedy drama sort of series.
Comedy
Not
drama.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit like I'm trying to think what else it's like, but it's not like super heavy on the funnies. It's not a joke a minute, but there's some very very funny moments that the characters get themselves into. But I think
Yeah.
it's all handled very wholesomely. I'll say.
Yeah.
How would it compare to another hit show called The Good Doctor, which is also about
I hate the
an
Good Doctor.
autistic
I
person?
can't stand the Good Doctor.
Me too.
I
Me too.
I've never actually watched the Good Doctor. I've only seen like trailers and stuff for it. But he speaks in a very stuttering way, as far as I can tell, and
So,
repeats himself a lot.
it's so infuriating.
And Sam is more he struggles to express himself at times, I guess is what I would say.
Mm.
And he can be no, he's a bit like I don't know, this is a weird comparison, but he's a bit like Drax. Like he just takes things very literally and will repeat them
Yeah.
back and doesn't always understand what's going on in the people around him. And but it's interesting to see him change over the seasons and start to learn more and relate to people better. It's
Are you
yeah,
saying? Are you
I
saying
love me some Drax. He
Drax was
destroyer.
one of our earliest on-screen representations of autism?
Drax might be on the spectrum. Who knows? I hope that's not
Yeah.
offensive to anyone. I'm not trying to be offensive. I think this show. I think it was criticized early on because it didn't have a lot of um, actors on the spectrum or anything like that. But from the second season, I know they really tried to up that, and they did it really well. Um,
Yep.
yeah, it's interesting. Some of those characters around him are so funny. And yeah, like I said, you're not laughing at them or you're not laughing at them because they're autistic. You're laughing at them because they get themselves into funny situations and the way they handle things is very funny.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, just
Right.
quick shout out to Mitchell's vs Machines has uh I know it was lauded as having great representation. Her brother is autistic, and it's yeah, handled well, and just another shout out for that movie. It's a great movie. You should watch it.
So your third
Um
recommendation is Mitchell's vs. the Machines.
Mitchell's Machines again. So
But 6
my
months after you saw it the first time, it's much better.
my third recommendation for movies for the year, The Power of the Dog. So this
Mm.
is a documentary about dogs. No. So the
I'd watch
year
that.
is 1925. Severe, pale-eyed, handsome. No, I'm not describing the three of us. Phil Burbank is a domineering rancher whose romance, power, and fragility is trapped in the past and in the land. He can castrate a bull calf with two swift slashes of his knife. He swims naked in the river, smearing his body with mud. He is a cowboy as raw as his hides. Phil responds with mocking cruelty when his brother brings home a new wife and her son until the unexpected comes to pass. So this is a new Netflix film, only came out about 2 weeks ago, I believe, directed by Jane Campion. Um, currently 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. I know you guys don't care about that, but
I
means
mean,
something.
more
Damn it.
importantly, it's got a 90 Metascore, which is very
There
good.
we go. That's very impressive.
Yep.
Benedict Cumberbatch, starring as the lead. I'm a big fan of him. This is I think, a different role for him. One that I think he does outstanding in as the main character.
It's got Meth
Um,
Damon in it.
I was I was trying to
Mate,
think of the actor's name,
do
and
not no, do not
all that
insult
came
Jesse
to my head
Plemons.
was Meth Damon. But
No,
yes,
he's
Jesse
good. He is good.
Plemons,
But yeah,
He
uh,
is phenomenal.
from Breaking Bad and El Camino fame, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, things.
he plays his brother. Kirsten Dunst plays the wife. She's great in that role as well. And oh, what's his name?
Cody
Mix,
Smith McPhee.
Cody Smith McPhee from The Road and Planet of the Apes. He's He's the son. Great movie. So I watched this less than 24 hours ago. So I watched this last night because it was one of the films that has been on my list, and I was like, I need to watch this before this podcast because
Yep.
I've heard great things about it. So I watched it last night. Loved it. Very, very intense. Uh, Benedict Cumberbatch's portrayal of this character is really like he plays an asshole really well.
Mm.
He's like intimidating. He plays. It's just I don't want to give away too much, but it goes in like unexpected directions that I wasn't expecting when I read the synopsis and started watching the film. The second half of the film, it goes in a different direction than I thought it would have, and left an impact by the end of it. I was like, damn. I was like, that was great. Highly recommend it. It's on Netflix now, so it only came out 2 weeks or so ago. But neither of you have seen this, correct? But Conan, I know it's on your to watch list. Is that correct?
Yeah, so this is this is like a real festival darling and one of
Mm,
those, like definitely gonna be in the race for best picture at the Oscars.
yeah,
Easily a contender for taking the prize. So it's like every year there's a few films that are like this is already gonna be one of the best films of the year before anyone's seen it, and this was one of them, and everyone's agreeing. Everyone's like, yeah, this is one of the best films of the year.
yeah,
So same deal. It was doing a run at some cinemas here a few weeks ago, but I was like, it's gonna be on Netflix, so I'm just gonna wait till then. But from what I've gathered, I should have seen it in the cinema because it's very beautiful, right? Like, there's a lot of beautiful
yeah.
shots and
And it's a similar thing to June, where like they stay on shots for a while,
mm.
like of the landscape. I believe it was filmed in New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand to look like Montana. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's totally New Zealand. I don't know if that's just the Lord of the Rings guy and me, just like every landscape. I'm like, it's Middle Earth.
No, I saw something and somebody was like, people are just like, that's not Montana. Have you not seen Yellowstone? That's Montana. So I think everyone knows that this is New Zealand, but
Yeah, like
still cool.
it's just from looking at the landscape. I was like, that's New Zealand. I was like, I know that from Lord of the Rings. Um, but yeah, really good film. Jesse Plemons as well is great. Like you said earlier, but um, yeah, interesting direction. I'm really glad I watch it, and I highly recommend it. But Benedict
Yeah.
Cumberbatch, it's always great.
Yeah. Jane Campion's a really interesting filmmaker. Like, obviously, New Zealand woman made some like very sparse, has made a bunch of stuff, but like, you know, over a long period of time.
This was her first film in 12 years.
Yeah, so she made Top of the Lake, that crime show. Sort of
Mm,
that was her project last decade. But yeah,
yeah.
not her last film before this was in 2009, which that's the only film of hers I've seen, Bright Star, which is good, but she's very interesting. She's very kind of I know, got like a an awareness of like exploring emotion but being detached from it, because Top of the Lake's really cold and weird, and Bright Star is both beautiful and not.
Mm.
No, I'm very excited to watch Fair of the Dog though.
But yeah, it's a good commentary on toxic masculinity and all that good stuff. And yeah, it's a good film.
Does it have
Um,
any dogs or
I don't think so.
that's bullshit?
What a lie.
Does anybody say the
Uh,
power of the dog in it? That's what we all need.
s- Um, you see that it's a quote from something. Um, you see it in a book during the movie. I don't think he reads it out loud, but yeah.
I
Yeah,
yeah,
missed
this
up.
keeps popping up on my list too, so I'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like Benedict Cumberbatch very much.
Why?
I
He's
don't know.
great.
Is it?
I was like all I was a Cumber bitch all through Sherlock. Like I was all about him,
Sherlock.
and then Sherlock kind of got bad towards the end.
Yeah, it did.
And
Hey,
then I'm not the biggest fan of Doctor Strange, and I think Smaug was crap.
What?
No, not his
Hey,
fault entirely,
Smaug's
but
great.
mm,
The movie's
is it?
not great.
mm.
He's Smaug the character's great.
Anyway, I'll give him another. I'll give him another chance.
Is it because he's funny looking?
No, I like even like the Imitation
He,
Game, a movie I was
I was
actually quite
about to say
enjoyed.
Imitation Game.
I quite enjoyed. I found him. I mean, he's supposed to be kind of painful in it, and he is kind of painful. I don't know. Maybe he's doing a good
Mm.
job. I need to lay off.
He he's pretty much always got that like ego character that
Yeah,
like is
he's
kind
a
of like
posh.
up
Wanker
himself,
of a
but
man, yeah.
so it was interesting. It was interesting to see him in this role where he's like,
Does he have
down
an
and
American
dirty
accent?
cowboy. Um, Not really.
Is
It
he
sounds like
supposed
Benedict
to?
Cumberbatch. Well,
Don't know.
Montana, it
I mean,
should
yeah,
be.
is he supposed to be
Yeah,
born and bred from Montana, or is he supposed to be
Yeah,
an
but
expat? Hmm.
oh,
yeah,
there's probably a hint of an accent. It's nothing ridiculous or noticeable. He just sounded like Benedict Cumberbatch being a cowboy to me.
Okay.
But on
that's
the
yeah.
Might be a
ranch.
hard
That sounds
watch.
strange.
But yeah, no, it's he did good in it. He's good. So don't know how you're not a
Don't
fan
be-
of Doctor Strange. Like Doctor Strange is great.
It's a bit meh.
Yeah.
Anyway, enough of the Marvel hate.
This is
There we
not a
go.
Marvel
That's 3
podcast.
recommendations that weren't Marvel. Thank you very much. Just saying.
Oh man.
Wait till we get to my honorable mentions.
Yeah, it's just going to be 3 Marvels. That's cool. All
That
right. Is that me now?
Yeah.
is you now.
All right. Have you guys ever heard of a film called Titane?
No, I can't say I
Called what?
have.
All right. Have you ever heard of a film called Raw? R-A-W.
I have heard of that. I haven't seen it.
All right. So Titane, a French Palme d'Or winning film. That is, that's a big thing. One Cannes.
Yeah.
Basically, it is a film about where do I even start? Trying to put it in the simplest thing. It is a film about a young girl who, after I'll read the IMDb synopsis because that's the most vague but helpful for the sake of this conversation.
Also, while you're looking that up, don't read the Rotten Tomato synopsis for Power of the Dog. It basically just says the whole movie.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
heard
was
it's
like, what is this? I
I-
can't say
I'm
this.
looking up Raw and I see a screenshot that looks like it's just spoiled the whole thing. So anyway, I'm a bit annoyed at myself. But
Raw's great. Watch Raw, but okay, so it's directed by Julia Durkinow, I think she pronounced it. This is her second film. Basically, so following a series of unexplained crimes, a father is reunited with a son who has been missing for 10 years. That's essentially all you need to know going into this. I saw this because I loved Raw. It's a phenomenal film, one of the best horror films of the year. And this is her next film. Was meant to be incredibly controversial. Had people walking out of theaters, people in an uproar, which I always love. And it is one of the most bizarro pieces of, I don't even know what to call it. It is a mess, but it is the hottest mess you will ever see.
So this is a horror thriller?
I don't know. It's got parts of that, but it's definitely not
you
only
don't know.
that.
You watched it though, didn't you?
Oh, I saw it. I loved it. You have to watch this film knowing nothing. If you look into what it's about, if you really do delve into the plot, it's going to ruin it. I went into this only knowing who she was and like, yep, cool. She makes good stuff. Won the Palme d'Or. I'm interested. And knowing that was so much better because the whole thing was just a crazy ride. It was 2 hours of like, what the hell's happening? Where am I going in this? Why is this happening? How is that happening? But it's this fascinating film. It's like someone's weird fever dream, but they've actually memorized the whole thing and they've got it down to a T. Like it's on one hand, it's this horrible body horror, like some of the most disturbing imagery you'll ever seen, horrifically disgusting shots. And then
Awesome.
on other scenes, it's got some of the most beautiful like humanity on there. It's fascinating. Just it's got this great human story under there, but it also makes no sense because of what's actually going on screen. It's crazy fun. It's got these amazing, like these beautiful moments of cinema. There's this phenomenal one shot that just completely gets you in the headspace for it. There's this great dance scene that is like it feels like you're sort of participating in this beautiful moment of catharsis. It is a film that is definitely not up anyone's alley, but man, it's worth seeing if you guys get a chance. It's so whack.
Don't watch this movie, but it's so good.
Like legit, I came out. I'm like, I don't know what it's about, but I also know completely what it's about. It's crazy. It's just one of the most interesting films I've seen. Like, it's not like anything else. It is truly its own creation. Um, I
Yeah.
just you guys need to see it. It's great. You'll probably hate it, but that's okay as well because it's just fascinating.
We'll have to do a watch along. The three of us just sit down and watch this together.
Maybe.
um, I just read the synopsis, but yeah, sounds interesting. Sounds odd,
Like,
but
yeah, I kind of want to. I don't even want to give away, but there's.
Just your reaction is almost selling me on it, but
Yeah,
also
same.
not selling me on it.
It's a trip, man.
I'm like, Conan found the body horror in this disturbing, this horror guy I know. I don't know if
Like,
I want to
yeah.
watch it, but I'm intrigued.
Mm,
Oh, it's nuts.
I might need somebody to hold me while I watch it.
Yeah, I'll come over and we'll watch it together.
Yeah, you guys watch it together.
Sounds like a plan.
This movie came out a long time ago. You describing it and like your reaction to it just reminds me of a film I saw ages ago. Did you ever watch Into the Skin? Is it Into the Skin or
Got
Under the Skin?
under the skin.
Yeah.
No, no. So I have a Blu-ray copy here, ready to go one day.
Okay. That was a weird film. That this reminds me of and was recommended to me by someone,
Yeah, I think
and
they're actually.
I didn't look at that person the same after watching it. So
I think that's probably a similar comparison because I heard a lot of the same discourse around Titane that I did around Under the Skin. So
yeah, yep. Scarlett Johansson is in that, and
yeah,
yeah,
but yeah,
interesting.
Titane, check it out
Did
if
you,
you ever get a
Conan,
chance.
just curious, you don't have to answer this. Did your wife watch this movie with you?
Oh Lord, no.
Okay.
Lord. No, I saw this at the movies with a friend, and I'm glad I
Right,
did because
okay.
it was like again being in a dark room with nothing else to distract me or like nowhere to go definitely helped me just be like it's like someone's just led me into a dark forest and I'm along for the ride and they could do anything to me here and I'm
It's
just
like,
gonna have to enjoy it.
it's like a Clockwork Orange where you're like pinned down and your eyes are pinned open and you just can't look away. You have to watch
Basically, yeah.
and you just drool from
That's
the mouth the whole time. Okay.
Is this a film that needs to be seen in cinema?
no, it definitely helps. There's great moments that are enhanced by it, but it's not I don't
Yeah.
want you guys to have any excuses to not watch it, all right?
Oh, damn it. I was like,
It didn't come
too
to Infrared
late.
Cinema, so no, check it out.
Okay, true.
All right. My final recommendation is a Netflix movie that never came out in the cinema, as far as I know. It doesn't have to be seen at the movies. A movie called Run. It came out at the end of last year, October last year. So I'm going to count it for this year because I watched it this
The
year. But
hell is this?
it's not the biggest movie ever. It's not the best movie ever, but I had a good time watching it. It's a thriller movie. I'll give you the synopsis.
Hmm.
Chloe was raised by her mother Diane in total isolation. Her mother has totally controlled her since she was born, but now as a teenager, Chloe is starting to explore her mother's secrets. Um,
Hmm.
it's just, look, it's a plot that's been done more than once before, where overbearing parent is keeping their child prisoner, essentially.
Mm.
Um, but I don't know. It's a fun movie. I watched it with my family, like my mum, who's pretty conservative, and she enjoyed it. So I don't know if that says something about how much of a thriller it is. It's not definitely not on the, it's not. There's no body horror in this movie at all. It's
So
I,
definitely more thriller than horror.
for sure. There's no horror in this
Yeah.
movie at all. It's definitely
Okay. Yeah.
like it's the kind of movie where you're yelling at the screen like, "Hurry up and make that phone call," or "Hurry up and lock that door," or whatever.
Don't go
But
in there. Don't go in there.
yeah, but it's there's nothing super scary about it. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say it's like the greatest movie ever. I feel like this is a weak movie for me personally. For movies, I didn't see a whole heap, but this was one that I had a good time with. Watched it with my family. The problem is it's hard to talk about without spoiling anything. The trailer spoils just
Mm.
about the whole movie, so don't watch that if you're gonna watch it.
I'd watch that.
No.
Yeah.
Um,
Sarah
but
Paulson's great.
yeah, I don't
Yeah,
mind
she's
Sarah
Great
good.
actress.
Paulson. She's pretty good. There's not many other people in it.
No.
And I mean, really, it's a movie about two people anyway. Kira Allen, who plays her daughter, does a really good job. Um, Plays a very sickly girl, and yeah, she's pretty good at that too.
Did you
It
guys
it has
sorry, you go.
Tony Revolori in it,
Oh,
who's
of course.
Flash from the new Spider-Man films.
Oh, does it?
There you go.
Yeah.
Probably a small role, but yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys see Searching? The film, what's it? It came out in 2018. It was like all shot on a computer screen.
No, but it's the same. It's the same director, right?
Yeah, writer director. So a guy,
Yeah.
Anish Chiganti. Yeah. So I've seen
Mm.
Searching, and Searching's really good.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, so I'm
That
interested
looks
now
fascinating.
in Run because yeah, I really like Searching. So
For what this is, like
Run,
a 90 minute thriller on Netflix, Like, it's fun. Like, I didn't like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with it. It's not gonna win any awards. I don't think it deserves to win any awards, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just a fun hour and a half. It's not like, it's not so scary or anything that you can't watch it with family around. Like, I think it's alright. Don't watch it with little kids, obviously,
I'll
but
watch it with my kids. Oh, whoops.
if you're looking for something to watch with friends on a Friday night, and
Yeah.
they all have varying taste in movies, you can't sit them down to watch Titane. You watch something like this.
Oh,
This is the kind of movie you put on.
I can just make anyone watch Titane.
I have a chair especially for it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Okay.
I've just screenshot it so I can remember to have to watch it when we have like a night and we're looking for something to watch it.
Hmm.
I think I'd enjoy watching that. So,
Yeah, I think it's
Mm.
enjoyable. It's
mm,
definitely a plot that's been done before, because when I googled the synopsis to try and remember the name of the film, about 8 other films came up before this one. So, but anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not completely original, but done pretty well.
yeah,
Do you guys
Okay.
have any? That's our 3 recommendations for the year. Hope you people listening enjoyed that. Do you guys have
yes.
any honourable mentions? Anything else you want to mention for the year 2021?
So I'll just go through my list of honorable mentions.
Sure.
Just quick shout out to them. Um, so a film Nobody, uh,
Oh,
starring one Saul Goodman, Bob Odenkirk. Basically, Saul Goodman, John Wick film. Um, I really enjoyed this. I felt like the melee and like the fight scenes and the choreography in this was brutal. Like especially felt like not so much gun violence. It felt like a lot of punching and that sort of combat. Christopher Lloyd's in it and he's great
yeah,
in it
he's
as
awesome.
well. Highly recommended. Sort of action flick to watch. We've talked about it on this podcast as well. The Fear Street trilogy was this year. Fun horror Netflix trilogy that I really enjoyed watching. Um, A Quiet Place 2.
Hmm.
I
It,
really
Mm,
it
enjoyed
nearly
that.
made it on my list. I think it was.
Yeah.
I forgot
Uh,
that was out this.
I think A Quiet Place is a hard movie to follow up, and I think they did pretty well.
Yeah.
I think they took it in an interesting direction.
Yeah.
Like it covers this basically this small event, like, to get to this place or whatever. And it's it's weird that certain characters are separated for like the whole second half of that movie, and they don't. I don't want to
Mm,
spoil anything, but it's interesting. I'm keen to see what happens in the future of that franchise or anything. But I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that film.
That movie does a really good job, I think, at separating those characters and still giving you tension on both fronts. I think there's a lot
Yep,
of scenes in that
100%.
movie where there's 3 different scenes going on, and all of
yeah.
them are super tense, and they all
At the
resolve at the
same
same time,
time,
and I won't say orgasmic, but it's a good feeling when it all comes together, because I think they do that pretty
because
well.
Yeah.
that tension's just building from all
Yeah.
sides, and you're
Yeah,
like, oh
yeah,
god, what one
Su-
of these is going to go bad,
yeah.
or
su-
yeah.
Surprisingly effective for John Krasinski. Like, I didn't know he had it in him. But
Yeah, I'm keen to
Well,
see what he
around
does next.
two.
I feel like
yeah,
A Quiet Place wasn't something I'm like, "Oh, man, I need a sequel to that." I hope he makes something different next time, because I think they're
Yeah.
both
I
very
agree.
good movies considering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Cillian Murphy, he's
Yeah,
tops.
he's great.
Always amazing.
Um,
Emily Blunt.
yeah, Emily Blunt's awesome too.
Even more amazing potentially.
Um, then the other two honorable mentions are TV shows. So again, we reviewed this on the podcast. Squid Game. Um, can't talk about 2021 without talking about Squid Game
Yep.
phenomenon.
Yeah, I left
Um,
it off my list because we did literally a whole podcast about it, but yeah,
a
it would
whole
have been on
podcast
there.
about it. So I'm not going to talk about it, but just wanted to shout out as that was great. And then another TV show that I really enjoyed was Made. Um,
I
Starring Margaret Qualley. Qualley,
think it's Quali. Either,
Qualley.
yeah, or Quali. Anyway.
I did 2 attempts and messed it up apparently. So I know her from a video game, Death Stranding. Hadn't really seen much of hers before that, and it was interesting how good this show was. I'd seen if it was had that Netflix thing where it was popular for that 2 weeks where everyone was
Mm,
watching it.
Yep.
Limited series. I think there's only 6 or 7 episodes. Highly recommend it. I think it's a really good, uh, accurate portrayal of both gaslighting, domestic violence situations, how people get in these frustrating cycles of just, you're frustrated, but you understand, and like it tells it very brutally and honestly. But a really powerful film. Ah, TV show. Sorry, not a film. Um, Great characters, though. Like it's not just all doom and gloom. There's a lot of comedy in that as well. Um, and yeah, highly recommended. Frustrating parts where you want things to go right, and of course something always has to screw it up. But that's life, as they say. Um, but yeah, highly recommend Made to anyone who wants to watch that.
I saw the first episode of this, and I was like, this is a different kind of depressing that I don't know if I really need.
Yeah, the first one really bludgeons you to death with
I was like,
depression.
my wife was watching it, and I was like cooking dinner and watching in the background. And by the end of it, she was just like, I don't want to keep watching. I'm like, neither do I. I
It's
feel drained.
like it really basically just punches you in the gut to start the show. It's like it just keeps hitting you, and then it yeah, it does change, but it's a great commentary on that sort of stuff that happens in real life.
Yeah.
Also just going into like how the system works for people, that are victims in this sort of stuff, with how, the government in America work and the system works, like with trying to find childcare, and it's such a big hassle, and like it's like the system's rigged, and how these people expected to escape from this stuff when what they're escaping to is not much better, and unlivable, sometimes. But really, really good film, great acting in it, highly recommended if you can get through the depression.
Speaking of shows about rigged systems, honorable mention The Wire, best show of the 21st century.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You should watch it,
I will.
finally.
Um, I've got a long list of so honorable mentions. I've only really got one actually, and that's The Last Duel. Neither of you
Mm,
guys saw this.
No, I heard I didn't hear good things about it. You think it was good?
Mm.
no, s-
What's Luke's? What's your thing?
so like I really want to see this film. It came down between this or Power of the Dog. What to watch last night before this podcast,
Power of the
and
Dog's better call probably.
I knew you had seen it, so I was like, I'll let Conan talk about it if he recommends it. But I really want to see it. I'm going to see it this week.
Yeah,
Surprisingly great critical reception. It just bombed at the box office.
yeah, it did very
Um,
poorly.
Obviously Ridley Scott said some stuff which has made people more
Yeah,
turn
it's
against him.
I don't know why he's doing that. He should just shut up.
Going all Seymour Skinner. It's the children
It's
who are wrong,
it
but
really it's not his proudest moment.
no. But I'm interested in watching it. Like it's kind of a thing when I feel like the marketing was really bad for that, as in I didn't know anything about it until it was here all of a sudden,
Yeah.
and it just feels strange to see Ben Affleck look like that and act like that character, and Matt
Yeah.
Damon as well. But
So here's the thing, right? This film 20 years ago, this would have been the biggest film in the world. This film would have been number one for the year. Think
yep,
Gladiator.
yep,
Do you remember what a phenomenon that was? Like
Yeah.
yep.
Yep.
this is another Gladiator. This is Gladiator 4 now because it's actually got a very relevant narrative because it actually deals with the whole idea of differing stories and how systems are built that similar to Made, like these systems are in
He said,
power
she
that
said.
silence women and how there's a he said, she said, but then also there's two he said, and they're more important than she said, even though she said the truth. And it's actually got a very interesting message and incredibly relevant for this day and age.
Hmm.
It's just unfortunate, yeah. It really it's also a film though that just doesn't have a place in society anymore. Like I say, Gladiator was the biggest film of 2000 in a lot of ways. Like everyone saw that, everyone reveres it, and this really is kind of like remember Gladiator, guys. Like we don't use that anymore. Like the people who want to watch that are 40 or 50-year-olds who don't really care about going to the movies that much. Like it's very much a film of a different time. It's the kind of film that we now have. We just have different things. We have Marvel. We have franchise blockbusters. We don't have middle-aged period pieces. Like that's just not a thing that sells. And
No.
I totally understand why it's not everyone's cup of tea. It can be a drag, but I think this is a really good film. It reminded me of how great Ridley Scott can be at directing action. Holy crap.
Yeah,
Um
Gladiator's awesome, man. Gladiator's a
yeah,
great movie.
That's what I mean, and, like, the combat in this film is amazing, some of the best I've seen in years, and the story is really good. It does have a problem of having Matt Damon having and Ben Affleck both with American accents, and they're French characters, so Matt Damon's like, I am Sir Jean Darouge," and it's like, "God, no, you're not."
Does their Boston accent come out really strong?
It's funny, all the
Ben
letterbox
Affleck's?
comment all of the letterbox comments were just like, how doth ye like Von Apples?" And, like, Boston in the 1300s was crazy. It's pretty funny.
Like, a horse almost walks him over, it's like, "Hey, I'm walking here!"
Kind of, but if you can get past that fact that they didn't commit to the period piece setting, it's a really good movie. And, the actress in the role, I can't remember her name, but she is fantastic.
Mm,
Like, fairly new to scene, like, should become a movie star. Hopefully, she gets the attention she deserves. Jodie Comer's her name.
yep,
But, yeah, that was the other one. I have so many films that, like, I wish I had seen or that I just missed. Like, I'm gonna run through them really quickly just to give you an idea.
yep.
Films I should have watched: Nitram, Last Night in Soho, Power of the Dog, Riders of Justice, The Harder They Fall, Pig, The Green Knight, The Card Counter, Drive My Car, Midnight Mass, the TV show, and then
Mhm.
films that I can't watch: No Sudden Move, Belfast, The Tragedy of Macbeth, The Black Phone, Memorial, Licorice Pizza, Red Rocket. Like, so many great films that I just have not or cannot watch, and bums
Is
me out.
Black Phone's not out till next year?
I think same deal. It's like technically been released this year, but it's not going to be out in cinemas or anything until next year.
Yeah, it's weird because I thought it was out, and then I was like, "All of a sudden it's February or something," but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but
It's a big
that's me.
list. It's a big list. Looking through the biggest films of the year, I'm like, man, half these I haven't seen. I should have watched more movies.
Yeah,
My what are we calling them?
Honorable mentions.
honorable
honorable mentions.
mentions. I'll give a shout out to Suicide Squad for being
Yep.
so much better than the original Suicide Squad. Like, it's not even comparable. Is it the greatest movie ever? No. Is Idris Elba wasted? Yes. But there's some really good moments in that movie that are very funny. Um, I
Is
know I
John
had a
Cena great?
John
Yes.
John Cena is actually pretty good in this movie. I'll give him that.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I had a good time with that movie. You know, again,
The
not going to
opening
win it.
20 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
Yep.
Look, the first like third is very very good. I think the
Yep.
last third is pretty bad. Um,
Standard
and
for DC films, I feel
yeah,
like.
the middle's
Yeah,
somewhere in the middle. Um,
Yep.
I look forward to DC being good one day, but maybe we just should move past comic book movies and move on with our lives altogether.
that's what I've been trying to say.
I want to give a shout out to Dark. It technically finished last year, so technically didn't, not from this year, but I watched it this year. Um, just an extremely good sci-fi show that really bends your mind. I don't know if half of its allure is the fact that it's in German. A bit like Squid Game, actually, it does lend something to
Mm,
it, especially since it's already so many weird concepts that it's in another language. I think it definitely, I don't know, it changes something. Maybe I'm the only one that feels
100%.
that way, but it definitely adds something to the mystery that's going on. Um,
Yep.
but definitely a show you have to concentrate while watching. You cannot be distracted while you're watching that show
Yep.
because between reading subtitles and trying to understand what the hell is going on, it's a hell of a feat.
Yep.
Um, and I want to shout out Scrubs for being relevant 20 years later. I just have
Good
to do it.
call.
I just have to do it.
It's a good show. It's a good show.
Um,
I also did a rewatch of Scrubs this year. It was a lot of fun.
I haven't watched Scrubs in years, but anytime I think
Has your wife seen the Brendan Fraser episodes? It might change her mind.
no,
It might
but
They're
change her mind.
the
when I think
best.
of Brendan Fraser, I think of that Scrubs episode because yeah,
Where do you think we are? I just literally watched that yesterday.
oh,
Very,
Yeah.
very good.
great episode, great episode. Um, I have one last honorable mention as well. Um, if you're a book fan, The Taste of Iron by C.V. Clarke, highly
Yeah.
recommended,
Soon to
especially if you're into horror, western sort of stuff. It's
soon to be adapted into a movie by me
oh, I thought you were going
and
to say
just
Ridley Scott, but
and just me. No, it's just me filming it and
Another
doing
book
it.
that will be impossible to translate into a film. I think just
But that's
too
not
much
doesn't mean
deep
it's not worth
minutia going
trying.
on. No, that's right.
If
That's right.
anyone's watching, try it. Give me some money and
highly recommended. Check it out.
It is good.
Available now on Amazon.
get on it. Does anyone have any dishonorable mentions?
Ooh, should have thought of that. I didn't.
I have one.
Go for it.
You go
Red
for it.
Notice. What a piece of
Man,
crap.
I heard everyone talking about it so much that I was like, "Oh, I should check this out." And then looked at the score, like the critical
Cancer.
reception, and I was like, "No, I shouldn't check this out. I trusted my instincts from the trailer. I'm not.
I did
I
I
should."
did like 20 minutes. I was like, I can't do it. It's just ah. And it's like, according to Netflix, it is their most popular film of all time in terms of how many people watch it, and I want to vomit. I'm so enraged that that crap is what people are watching, what Netflix is
Yeah,
deeming a success. I wanna put my
crazy.
fist through my laptop. It's the
Um,
worst parts of Ryan Reynolds, the worst parts of The Rock, the worst parts of everything about films. Just no.
I know
Anyway.
this isn't dishonorable, but I forgot this was this year, and just a little shout out, just Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
Did either of you guys watch this?
No, I'm really keen to.
I'm curious
It's
about
not
it
like a.
because they change, like they cut out a character and CGI'd a new one in. That sounds.
Oh, really?
It's a
I
Did you not
shame.
wasn't
know
even aware.
this? Look this up.
No.
There's
I'll have to
yeah,
find that out because I watched that movie. Um,
someone got cancelled like after the movie was shot, so they replaced them.
oh wow,
Oh.
I'll have to look into that. And didn't notice it. I probably would now if I knew about it. But
Yeah,
it's it's an enjoyable zombie flick that's kind of different than your normal zombie flick. Found it intriguing, but yeah, that came out in May of this year on Netflix exclusively as well. But it's got Batista doing Batista things, and um, yeah, it's fun. It's just a fun, dumb action flick, but
Yeah.
recommend that as well.
I was meaning to check that out. I actually forgot one of my honorable mentions too. Fresh, Fried, and Crispy. It's a show on Netflix about a guy who goes around and eats just fried food. It's like it's not it's not fiction. It's fact. This is reviews of food and restaurants, and it's by Dame Drops. He's like a YouTuber, but he got a Netflix
Mm.
show. You might recognize him from as he was a big black guy that ate burgers in his car and raved about them. That was pretty much how he got big. But I recommend
Oh,
that show if you like greasy food. Um,
Was that was that a double pun? That's how he got big, or
well, the last time I checked him out on
nailed
YouTube,
it.
his video was like, "My doctor advised me to no longer review food." So I don't know how he's going these days, but that show's
Yep.
fun if you're into
That's
cooking
funny.
shows at all.
One last one. Do you guys see Mortal Kombat? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I forgot about Mortal Kombat.
Wow, that was this
It
year.
would be an
Yeah.
honorable mention for me. I enjoyed it.
I
Yeah.
still haven't watched it. I still haven't watched it. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I just
Okay.
forgot it existed after a month, so I never got around to watching it.
I think everyone
That
did.
would be yeah, that would be honorable. Wasn't great, but was a lot of fun.
They needed more fatalities, more gruesome fatalities.
100%, yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
well. If we get a sequel, hopefully.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that does it. About does it for 2021. Ready to wrap this bad boy up. 2022 is going to be a good year. There's not going to be any COVID problems. Movies will come out on time.
One last thing, I will
Yeah,
say, if we were recording this in a week, my top recommendation probably would have been Spider Man.
maybe. You don't
Oh,
know
no.
that yet. You can't
I know
predict
it
that.
would be.
It all depends on if certain Spider-Man show up. It would be the best movie of all time. But
You'd be just riding high on your
this is just
Marvelness.
another time capsule. There would have been a Marvel movie here if this was recorded next week
You're
or within a
Thank
definitely
few days.
God we didn't.
you're definitely dating this podcast because the podcast that comes out before this one is going to be about that Spider-Man movie. But anyway, um,
Yes.
coming up next on bonus on good, bad, and worst, I forgot to talk to you guys about this beforehand, but I think we're going to start doing Star Wars earlier next year. Is that the plan?
That's the plan.
So we're going to do a
Yes.
trilogy of podcasts about trilogies. We're going to do
Correct.
all nine Star Wars movies. We're going to do them in release order. We're going to rate each trilogy individually and then rate them as a whole. I think is the plan. So
Yeah.
tune in for 3 episodes all about Star Wars. I'm so keen
Yeah.
because this is one of those trilogies I've been meaning to do from the start. We're finally getting to it. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
It's a big undertaking and it's
It
going to
It
be
is.
is.
controversial. It's going to be controversial, but I'm
But we are
intrigued to
nothing if
see,
not controversial.
to have the one good movie and the 8 bad ones and see how we.
One of
I'm
us always has
just
controversial
trolling.
opinions anyway.
Just trolling. But I'm looking forward to it. My kids have never seen any Star Wars movies, so this will be my way of introducing them to Star Wars.
Nice.
My 9-month-old daughter hasn't either, so
What?
I'll be right there with you, introducing her to all 9 of them.
Oh wow, cool.
And she better like it.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for the good, the bad, and the worst. You can find us on socials at Good, Bad, Worst. You can also catch us on our sister podcast, brother podcast, Bonus
Brother
XP,
from
where we
another
talk
mother.
about video games. I think coming up soon, we'll be doing a Game of the Year episode, so that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Check
next
that out on
episode.
YouTube or all your podcast apps, and we'll catch you next time.
May the force be with you.
Can we call it a stepbrother podcast?